Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. So a few months ago I did a video titled My Foundation Collection, The Good, the Bad, and the Unused, and that is kind of a series that I have going on my channel. Basically I will show you guys my different categories of makeup in my collection, and I talk to you guys about everything in those respective categories, and I basically talk to you guys about the things that I think are good, the things that I think are bad, and the things that I literally do not use anymore and need to get back to using. So this entire series is meant to motivate me to use more of my collection. I'm on my no-buy, which also means that I'm trying to motivate myself to use more things in my collection because I literally am not allowing myself to buy any new makeup. But I basically, over these last few months since I did that video, I have been trying out all the different foundations that I own, and I've been trying to construct my opinion on them leading up to this video, which is going to be a video in which I take you through each and every single bottle of foundation, and this is going to be the video in which I declutter them. So I have right over here all my foundations, and this time I have them very organized in this little metal box thingamajiggy. I will say that my opinions on decluttering in general have altered a bit. Ever since I was on my no-buy, I basically have gotten used to the idea that no, I cannot buy more makeup whenever I need it. So as a result, I have been a little bit more, I would say, lax whenever it comes to my decluttering rules, if you will, because before I'd be like, if it isn't amazing, I'm decluttering it, which is not necessarily in my mind right now the best thing for me to do, because if I spent money on anything and if it's not like altogether awful and if I can still find a use for it, might as well use it up, you know? So I basically have not a lot of foundations here, but I have a few foundations in here, so there's really no like need for me to basically throw out most of these foundations. So that's why I'm only going to be decluttering a few of these, but I do have pretty strong opinions on, I think, all of these foundations. So let's just get into it. I'm first going to be talking about this foundation right here. Sorry, I just had to put those down. This is the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Soft Matte Longwear Foundation. Now, this is an item that I have had for quite a bit. Ever since the Fenty Beauty Matte Foundation came out, I have been using this, and I think that when it first came out, I absolutely loved it. I think for a time I was calling this my holy grail, my ride or die, my favorite foundation of them all. I was so obsessed with it, I was so into it, I was so in love with it. What changed? My preferences and my needs. For me, whenever I was wearing this foundation, first off, I really wanted something that was like full coverage. I wanted something that was matte since I have oily skin, and this foundation really worked out for me in that way because it stayed on throughout the day and it was like medium to full coverage and it was like very matte. It's not like a complete like just, you know, complete matte. It's more of a demi-matte finish. You do get the matte effect, but it's not that drying. It still looks like skin, but it doesn't look like very natural skin. It just looks like matte skin. You get my meaning? I hope you do. But anyway, this foundation is a foundation that I don't find myself wearing anymore because of how higher coverage it is and how matte it is. Also, something I did realize whenever I was using this was that A, the color was not necessarily the right match for me, like for my skin at the moment, and B, this dries down very quickly. So that's something that I actually didn't notice when I first bought this foundation and when I first was using it, but recently I have noticed that this foundation does dry out or dry down on the skin very quickly, to the extent that it's a little bit difficult to blend once it decides to set. So I have actually found a great use for this foundation, and that is for an eyeshadow base. I actually used it on my eyes today as an eyeshadow base before I put on eyeshadow, and it really just helps the eyeshadow stick to the skin quite well, which I do love because of how long wearing and matte this formula in general is. So that's what I've been using this foundation for. Also, I use it for spot concealing because in my mind it automatically just pretty much doubles almost as a concealer because of how long wearing it is and how it really has a tendency not to budge. So I just use it as like a spot concealer. I usually just pump a little bit onto the back of my hand. I take a small detail brush, I dab it on the area where I need it, and I take another brush and just lightly buff it out, and this doesn't budge. So I am going to be keeping this because I can still use it up. I can still use it as a spot concealer and it literally doesn't budge. I can also use it as an eyeshadow primer. It's not like the most wonderful eyeshadow priming product out there, but eyeshadow primer is a way I can end up using this up. So I'm not going to be decluttering this. I'm going to be keeping this for now. That was like the longest winded conversation about one product. Hopefully I can speed this up along because I cannot be talking this long about one product. Next up, I have the Cover FX Natural Finish Oil-Free Foundation. This surprised me. It's a medium coverage. It's not the most high coverage of them all, and it is a pretty good match for my skin. It had this particular shade, I think it's G30, has a little bit of a golden undertone. I actually was like going into this and I had no idea how this foundation would perform. I had no idea how it would wear. Like I said before, I actually don't wear a lot of foundation at once or at all. So whenever I was testing out these foundations, I would typically put minimal amounts on my face or I'd use them as spot concealing. So for reference, that's the way I use foundations. I did use this foundation all over my face, albeit still sparingly several times because I wanted to get the sense of how this foundation worked on my oily skin. So what I found out is that this foundation in my mind is pretty good. I think that it is one of my favorite foundations of this bunch at the moment because it literally gives you a lot of coverage. It blends out very seamlessly. It does set, so you do have to work quickly, but it doesn't set as quickly as the Fenty one. So this one basically gives you a lot of room for movement, a lot of room for blending, and I really do like this a lot. It really works well for me, and it looks great on my skin. It just evens everything out quite nicely. It covers everything that I want it to cover, and it just gives me such a beautiful effect on my skin. So this I'm definitely keeping. I cannot wait to use more of it. It's a really great foundation in my personal opinion. The one caveat that I have with this is that it literally just comes in a tube and I have to squeeze it out. I wish it came with a pump. I mean, Cover FX sells this foundation for like $40 to $50. I believe that's the range. So with that price tag, it should have a pump, in my personal opinion. Let's talk about the Sephora 10-Hour Wear Perfection Foundation. So this is one that I don't necessarily like, but I'm trying to use up because I don't hate it. And we'll be getting to the foundations that I actually hate in this video quite soon. But this is a foundation that it's an okay foundation. Again, I have oily skin, and I usually, whenever I'm wearing a foundation, I want something that will sort of cover my imperfections. I want something that will mostly even things out, and I also don't want anything that will break me out, and I don't want anything that will make me look like a greased ball of foundation. And this pretty much hits all those marks. The only thing is that it just doesn't do anything that spectacular for my skin. And I know that that's like a little bit of a weird thing to say. It doesn't do anything spectacular for my skin. But like, seriously, I think that in 2019, foundations should make your skin look like better than it actually looks, you know what I mean? So this foundation, what it does for me is that it evens things out. It gives me a medium coverage. I do like to sheer it out, so it gives me a very light coverage though, and I'm wearing it today. This is the foundation that I chose to wear on my face today, and I think I just smudged my lipstick on my cheek. I don't know how that happened, but I pretty much put it all over my face, and as you can see, I mean, where I don't have highlighter, you can see that this gives me a pretty matte finish. I still have a lot of breakouts here, and it doesn't really cover all those breakouts, but that's because, in my mind, that's because I sheared it out so much. but it just doesn't do anything that spectacular for my skin. It evens things out. It gives me a matte finish. So in a way, if you're looking for that, that's great, but I want something that will literally make my skin look as if I just had like a gallon of water and I look fantabulous, you know? I want something that will make me look just fresh and glowing and healthy and beautiful, and this just evens things out and gives me a little bit of coverage, and it gives me a matte look, and I don't necessarily look for that. So this is not something that I love. It's not a foundation that I reach for that much, but it's one that I am intending to use up. But it's still not that bad, so I'm not going to declutter it. I hate this. This is the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Glow Foundation. I think a few months ago, I was complaining about the fact that I had tried a foundation on my skin and it had broken me out. Somehow, this foundation decided to go on my skin and break it out, like a lot. I basically had like so many breakouts like in this area and in this area. I think I had like a really big, like just painful set of acne. It was just not the best look at all. It was not the best experience. I hated it. And yeah, like, to be sure, that alone would have made me not want to use this foundation again, because whatever's in it just made me break out so much. And I'm thinking that's maybe why I actually stopped using this foundation to begin with, because it was breaking me out. But also the effect that it produced on my skin. The finish was nice, okay? It was pretty much like a slightly luminous finish. It gave me a lot of coverage. It does give you a medium coverage. The finish was nice, but it basically made my skin look like it had layers and layers of foundation on it, even though I didn't put that much on, you know? And for me, I want my foundation to look as much like skin as possible. And I know that it's like almost impossible for foundation to sit on your face and look like it's your natural skin, but this just sat on my skin. It just looked like a layer of foundation on my skin, and I didn't necessarily like it. Plus it broke me out. So this is, I'm not into this. Definitely decluttering this. This is just going bye-bye. This next item, this is the L'Oreal Infallible Total Cover Foundation. Now, I do admit I have not actually tried this foundation. And here's the reason why. I am afraid that it'll break me out. Like, it'll break me out just like the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Glow Foundation did. And quite honestly, that breakout was like so bad. I don't know what happened, but like it was so bad that like I don't want to touch this foundation. So this is one that I'm just not interested in. And even the finish of it, like, it just has like this really thick, like almost really stiff texture to it. It just squeezes out of the bottle. I'm not sure if you can see that, but like, let me zoom in. That's just pretty much it. And like, it has a texture similar to toothpaste pretty much. And it's very thick, but this is just something that I think I'll declutter, because I literally, like, I don't want to put this on my face and I don't think I'll like it anyway. So I know that's cheating, but still, I literally don't want to get a breakout. And since this gave me a breakout, I feel like this would too. So anyway, I want to move on to some more foundations that I don't like. I see, like, here's the thing. I, at one point, would have loved these foundations. One is the Rimmel Lasting Finish 25-Hour Wear with Comfort Serum Foundation. And then the other is the Rimmel Match Perfection 24-Hour Moisture Pore Blurring Effect Foundation. Now, these foundations are both quite similar. I kind of like the finish of this one better because of like the way that it really gives your skin like this satiny finish. It's really quite nice. However, the issue that I have with these foundations is that the formula itself feels dated. And see, the thing is, for me, I think that in 2019, I want a foundation that has an air-light texture that goes on the skin, blends out really nicely, that doesn't feel thick on the skin. I do not want that. So these foundations, both of these, just feel like an extra layer on my skin that I do not want. Even if I apply just a tiny bit on my skin, they still feel like a thick layer of product on my skin that I do not want to be experiencing. So I am not going to be wearing these foundations that much, if at all. I haven't actually made a decision. I'm not sure if I'll declutter them or not. I probably should, because I will literally not be wearing these foundations. Like, I don't think I want to wear these because they don't make my skin look that great and they feel really uncomfortable on the face. This foundation, I distinctly remember whenever I wore it for a video, and I wore it for several videos, I think. And when I was done filming, my face felt so greasy, it felt so uncomfortable, and I like moisture, I like dewiness, but I don't like feeling as if I'm wearing a greasy inducing product on my skin. It feels uncomfortable, it doesn't feel great. There are foundations in this video that give my skin a very luminous effect without making it feel greasy, but this is not one of them. The finish that these give is kind of like matte to satin, but then at the same time, they literally make my skin feel so greasy and just so uncomfortable. So this is definitely just not something I'll be using that much again, if at all. I probably will declutter this. This foundation is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Stick Foundation. Now, my opinion on this from my last video has pretty much remained unchanged. This is the type of foundation that the only way to really apply it that I have just experienced is basically taking this and just striping it onto your face. And when you go to blend it out, it just practically disappears into like a minimal coverage film on the face. It does make my skin feel greasy and it does not stay very long at all. I feel like if I want a stick foundation, if I want to use a stick foundation, I want it to at least stay on my skin, at least even something out, but this doesn't really do that. So this is just a foundation that I don't like, and I think I'll either keep it for like some like cool avant-garde kind of makeup. I'm not sure, I might update you guys on that, or I just might declutter it outright. The only thing that's making me want to keep it is the fact that it is a stick face product, and I could potentially use this for some really cool makeup designs. I have no idea, but like, we'll see. You definitely won't be seeing me use this unless it's for something like super editorial and avant-garde. I don't think I'll declutter it just yet because I might still have a use for it. If I don't find a use for it, this is just going in the bin. Next up, I want to talk about the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation. Now, this is something that I think I will only be keeping to use as a mixing medium. And I mean use it as a mixing medium to like mix with like different pigments and like different colors to like create something that can be like just applied to my face like for like an avant-garde makeup thing. I know I'm using avant-garde in this video a lot and quite unnecessarily, but I have been experimenting with avant-garde makeup. It is something that I'm like really trying to look into, and that kind of makeup, I feel like I can use a lot of the products that I already have for that kind of makeup, and some of those products do include foundation. So this is the type of thing that I might use for that. This type of foundation, like this particular foundation, it's very inexpensive. That's great. But it just makes my skin look like it has a lot of foundation on it when it really doesn't. And I don't like that. It just doesn't really do anything that amazing for my skin. It reminds me very much of a thinner, more liquidy version of the Sephora foundation that I mentioned earlier. These two foundations, they do the bare minimum for my skin, but if I'm going to be wearing a foundation, I want it to go a step further. These next foundations are foundations that truly make my skin look that much more amazing. And one of those foundations, you might recognize this, the Physicians Formula The Healthy Foundation. Whenever I talk about foundations going the extra mile, whenever I talk about foundations basically making my skin look amazing, this is the foundation that does that. This is a foundation that has a little bit of an interesting kind of packaging. This is very similar, I think, to the Tarte Shape Tape foundation, but this particular foundation, it has a medium kind of coverage, but it's really great if you want to sheer things out because it does that brilliantly. And this also really just makes your skin look so luminous and so healthy. It's not necessarily, well, a very overly luminous foundation. It's literally meant to make your skin look that much better. It's basically meant to like mimic the look of healthy skin, and I love this. This is my #1 most flattering foundation on my skin. This literally, I put it on and it makes my skin look as if I have just been rehydrated 10 times over. It makes my skin look so amazing, and I don't even have to put a lot of it on for it to have that kind of effect. I just have to apply the bare minimum and it still makes my skin look great. This is my most natural looking foundation, point blank period, and I love it. Another alternative, and this is a little bit more of an expensive alternative, but this one is great if you want something that is a light whipped texture that blends out really seamlessly but is a matte. This is the Fionna Styles Matte Finish Foundation Concentrate. Another really supremely flattering foundation for the skin. This is amazing. I wear it and it gives me a matte finish, which I'm not like obsessed about. Like I kind of do like that luminous finish. And this is the kind of foundation that just melts into the skin. And I think, in my personal opinion, that it is like the matte relative for the Physicians Formula foundation. It's a little bit thicker, and it is also a better alternative, in my opinion, to the Fenty foundation, because these two foundations are quite similar. However, this one, the Fionna Styles one, will give you a lot of extra leg room to blend things out, to move things around, to really make it that much more amazing. Whereas this, you have a small window to work with it, and that's it. This is a very light whipped texture, and you blend it out into your skin and it looks absolutely amazing, and you don't necessarily have to struggle that much with this foundation, and it looks so good on your skin. So this is one that I'd recommend hands down. Then I have these two foundations right here. Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought, but these are two foundations that I love. These are so beautiful. Like, these are the Milani Conceal and Perfect 2-in-1 foundation and concealer. I have two shades. I have #2 natural, #1 creamy vanilla. Oh my goodness, these two shades are beautiful. These two finishes are beautiful. These two formulas are absolutely stunning. Like, it's great skin in a bottle. It's a higher coverage in my mind than the Physicians Formula, the Healthy Foundation, and it's more matte, but at the same time, it will stay on longer. I think that if you're like me, and if you're a really big fan of wearing no foundation, but if you occasionally get the giant zit or the many little zits that you want to cover up, this is a great option because you can put it on that imperfection, and you can use a tiny brush to blend it out, and it just seamlessly blends into the skin. Not just to look like a foundation, but it blends into the skin, and it is perfect. Because a lot of times when you use certain foundations for this purpose, when you basically have like a tiny spot of foundation on your skin, and then you're not wearing foundation anywhere else, it literally looks like you have foundation in that one area. And that's not necessarily because the foundation is terrible. It's because most foundations are simply meant to be worn all over the face. They're not meant to be worn in specific areas of the face. But this foundation, like, you can put it on and you can blend it out like in a specific area of your face, and it will melt into the skin. It will look the same as the skin around it, but it will still look better. That makes no sense. But hopefully you can get what I mean. If you're somebody who has problematic skin, but you don't want to wear foundation all the time, and yet you still want something that will cover up certain areas of your face whilst still staying put throughout the day and not drawing attention to that area because of an unnaturally matte or an unnaturally luminous finish, this is great, in my personal opinion. Next, I do want to talk about the Huda Beauty what is this? The Faux Filter High Coverage Cream Foundation. This is a pretty good high coverage foundation if you're looking for that. It comes with a pump. You put it on your face. You don't have a lot of time to blend it out though. You have to work quickly. But once you really blend it out, it stays put. It doesn't move. It's amazing. Like, it's one of those products. Like, it doesn't move. It stays put through heat, through humidity, but I don't use it on my face because it's simply too high coverage for that purpose. Like, it is a foundation that you put it on your face and it is literally, it feels like a mask, especially if you're someone like me and you don't, it got so dark, especially if you're someone like me and you don't want to, or you don't necessarily feel like you're used to wearing foundation every single day. This is not the foundation for you because you will put it on and you'll be like, I have so much on my face. And it doesn't necessarily look bad. It just feels like a lot of product on your skin because this foundation is so high coverage and like it is so, I would say, saturated with pigment and coverage. I use this foundation very rarely. I have used it for spot concealing and it works great like that. Not as fantastic and natural and beautiful as the Milani foundations, but this really just stays put and it doesn't budge. I also love using it as eyeshadow base, eyeshadow primer, if you will. This is my #1 favorite foundation to use for that specific purpose because you put it on and it doesn't budge. It doesn't move, it doesn't go anywhere, and that, my friends, is a perfect eyeshadow base. You know, it stays sticky for just the right amount of time for you to actually put eyeshadow on top of it, and then it just sets and it doesn't go anywhere. So yes, this is brilliant. I love it so much. I wouldn't recommend getting it for the purposes that I just mentioned because it's just gonna be a simple like waste of money. But I am somebody that bought this foundation because I thought it would be great for me, that I thought that I would always want to wear foundation that was completely full coverage, that was super matte, but then my preferences did change. And as they changed, I realized I simply could not wear this foundation all over my face and still feel happy. So it was either I repurpose this foundation or stop wearing it completely. And I decided to repurpose it. And since then, I have been able to really like get into it and really use it quite consistently. So this is great. I love it so much. Is it the perfect foundation for me? No, because like I said before, I want foundation that has a very sheer finish. I want something that will basically give me like a more of a realistic kind of skin look. This will give you perfect Instagram skin in a bottle. It won't necessarily give you natural looking skin. Then I want to talk about the last foundation, and I don't even know if I should mention this or not. This is the L'Oreal True Match Super Blendable Makeup Foundation. I literally just use this for special effects makeup for Halloween once a year, so that's what I'm keeping it for. Those are all the foundations that I have in my collection, and those are my final, well, not final, but those are my final opinions on them for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. I think I will be decluttering these 4 foundations, and I know that these 4 foundations, it's not a big fraction, or it's not a big percentage of all the foundations that I have in this collection in total, but I truly think that it's much more important to simply try and find ways to repurpose makeup as an alternative to automatically decluttering something just because you don't like it that much. I can pretty much look at the rest of these foundations and think of ways to use them, but these, I really truly feel like I cannot repurpose these foundations, and I do not even like them that much, so these will be going in the bin. However, everything else I will be trying to repurpose, and the foundations that I really like I will be using up. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this video. That is my declutter of my foundations. I did not get rid of a lot, but I do feel like I'm very satisfied knowing that I am able to look at one category of my makeup collection and know the ins and outs of every single product within it. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and found it informative and interesting, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye guys.